too. During the heat of the game, it's clear he's a champ when all else disappears. Rally the team with a wink and a cheer. He's the leader that everyone fears. Quickly, it's a real heater. Once my friend, he's a locker room leader. In the chaos, he's the center, turning us into believers.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Sunday night. It is 7 p.m. and I am OM Dynamic. That means it is time for one thing and one thing alone. It is time to look back at the week that was and the week to come in the WWE with Raw and SmackDown. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Locker Room Rasslin Recap. And we have a lot to get through here, ladies and gentlemen. Both brands put on fantastic shows. Nothing really stood out on SmackDown, but the continuity, some build, some moves. Raw was really, really where the action was. And we are coming off of Clash in Italy. So last week's Raw took place, for those of us here in North America, at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Same thing tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. It will be coming to us 2 p.m. Eastern Time. But you can stay tuned for the Raw Patrol at our regular scheduled time of 8 p.m. Eastern. Ladies and gentlemen, are they back? Are the Bloodline officially back? We started off the show with Roman Reigns really, really milking the entrance coming off of Clash in Italy for the acknowledgement ceremony. Now, we did see them arrive in a luxury SUV or a luxury van, and Roman gets his belt handed to him, which I don't know if I am a big fan of this, ladies and gentlemen. I think that as the champion, he should be coming in carrying that strap on his shoulder or around his waist, as opposed to coming in and it being just handed to him each and every week just as an accessory. I'm not a big fan of it being treated, I don't think disrespectfully is the right word, but as a prop, as an aesthetic. And that's exactly what having the belt boy hand it to him really makes it feel like, from my perspective. So Roman and the Usos make their way to the ring, and the crowd, ladies and gentlemen, the crowd really singing Roman, Roman Reigns, Roman, Roman Reigns, and really, really getting into it. The ones to the sky, all of it really allows the Bloodline to milk it. And ladies and gentlemen, North American crowds get it together. We get them 2 to 3 times a year. European crowds get them once, and the European crowds kick our asses when it comes to crowd involvement. So the Bloodline really, really able to milk that entrance, milk the acknowledgement before Roman spoke, where he asked Jacob Fatu to come out, which Jacob did. Jacob said he knew what it was, and they had agreed to before Tribal Combat. But Jey Uso trying to say something, getting a little bit frisky, so to speak, and Solo saying, look, I lost to Roman Reigns. At least I didn't lose to your punk ass, Jay. Where are we going? Are we building to that Uso versus Fatu match. Is this the way to get Jey Uso out of the bloodline, get him back on his own? Or is this something new? We did have Jacob Fatu acknowledge Roman Reigns, even getting down on one knee and lifting his hand. Roman took his hand, pulled him up, hugged him, and said, "I love you." Jacob then posed, standing in behind Jimmy with the one to the sky. This wasn't the four men standing side by side, which I really found interesting and very, very telling. Because Jacob did his traditional head shake, and I almost thought he was going to clock Jimmy from behind. So what does this mean? Is the bloodline back? Is Jacob now that new fourth man? Is Jacob replacing Sami Zayn in the original bloodline? Is he that fourth man? Or does he become Roman's right hand? We've already seen, as Jimmy has always been that errand boy, and I think we need to do something to really break Jimmy out on his own, instead of him being the, I guess, comedy act of the group, so to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, the match I could have done without in the King of the Ring tournament. It was a fatal four-way pitting the ruler Obafemi versus Carmelo Hayes versus Solo Sikoa versus Penta. And I have a lot of issue with this match, ladies and gentlemen. I really do, because we had initially been promised Penta versus Rey Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, all of a sudden, they put Penta into this qualifier. So that really didn't make sense to me. They should have gone with Penta and Rey, and we are going to touch on that again in just a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I had Solo Sikoa picked to win this. And he was accompanied to the ring. He had Tala Tonga with him. But would that pay the dividends? The reason I had Solo Sikoa picked, I'd actually had Solo Sikoa picked to go to the finals. And think about it. You could have had Solo Sikoa challenge Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, win that title. Now all of a sudden the MFT and the Bloodline are holding both shows. But again, I'm going to get into that in a little while, because we've got some interesting matches coming up later in the week on SmackDown. This match started Obafemi running over everybody while his music still played, and then he hit his pose. What was the point? This was really Solo Sikoa's match. Once the match actually started, everybody jumped on Oba, trying to get him out. He did the typical beast spot, sending everybody flying. When he went outside the ring, he's taken out by Tala Tonga. And put over the barricade in the timekeeper's area. Well, ladies and gentlemen, why didn't Tala Tonga stay on him? You could have really, truly opened the door for a powerhouse versus powerhouse match later on, whether you're looking at potentially Survivor Series War Games or whether you're looking further on down the road, even a WrestleMania next year. Instead, like I said, this was primarily Solo's match. He was really controlling the flow of it. Until Obafemi did his best boogeyman impersonation, rising up over that barricade, coming in and just laying waste to everyone to take the victory. Ladies and gentlemen, Oba did not need to win this match. He could have very easily not been the guy pinned, lost, and still looked strong. And instead, after the match, we get him on the mic calling out Brock Lesnar again. Ladies and gentlemen, please make this make sense to me. You've got a guy the size of Obafemi, who is now really the odds-on favorite to win the King of the Ring tournament just based on his sheer size and depending his next opponent. Well, and he's calling out a guy he's had 2 matches with in Brock Lesnar. Well, what are we doing here? Are we going with Obafemi to win the King of the Ring, or are we going with Oba Brock 3? Make it make sense, people. Please. Because really, this is really, really confusing booking for Obafemi as far as I am concerned. Are you going to give him the King of the Ring, have him challenge for the title before Brock 3? Or are you going to have him put that number 1 contendership on the line against Brock in a number 1 contender versus career match? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. This situation really, really has me puzzled, and I am not a big fan of the way they are booking Obafemi at the moment. We found out that following Raw, WWE was going to air the entire mask versus mask match between the original El Grande Americano and El Grande Americano from AAA, Noches de las Grandes, right after Raw. It was actually considered a 1-hour part on Raw for us. I haven't watched the match yet, but we are going to get it. And then WWE really, really confused everybody with the King of the Ring, and I will explain why. Because they took 2 people out in Talatonga and Ricky Saints. But we're going to find out a little bit something more about that a little bit later. Replacing them with Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre. Well, we don't know when Drew's returning. Now all of a sudden you're giving it away. And they did this with Asuka's return a year ago too in this tournament. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we had an uninterrupted interview with Sol Ruca, your new Women's Intercontinental Champion. I've said it before. I'm not a fan of people being hot-shotted into that spot. She had not seen a lot of success on the main roster, and having been up there a month, to put her over Becky Lynch at Clash in Italy really, to me, again, did not make a lot of sense. I'm not a big fan of Becky Lynch's title reign, as I feel she uses that Intercontinental title as an aesthetic and a prop piece, much the same way the belt boy handing Roman the title treats it as more of a prop piece. Soul came out. She thanked the fans who kept chanting, "You deserve it. You deserve it." No, Soul didn't deserve it. But we needed the finality. We got the finality. And we're going to see where that goes from here. Do you remember just a few minutes ago I said we were supposed to have Penta versus Ray for the Intercontinental Championship, and they pushed it back to put Penta into the King of the Ring match. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, and again, I just don't know. You booked an Intercontinental Championship match for last Monday. Now all of a sudden you changed it up to give us Penta and the King of the Ring, and now Rey Mysterio and a returning Dragon Lee versus Rusev and Ethan Page. Sometimes the booking just hurts my head, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I was looking forward to Penta versus Ray last week. And instead we are treated to this tripe. Yes, it was an entertaining match, but it was nothing to truly stand out and was really, really unnecessary. Yes, the crowd was excited to see Rey Mysterio, but this was all about Dragon Lee taking the beating, so to speak, before he could get to the hot tag after a commercial break. Of course, Ray gets the tag in. Finally, of course, hits all of his signature moves. So this was a planned spot match, ladies and gentlemen. But it was, of course, Ray hitting the 619 to pick up the victory by pinning Ethan Page, who we know had the Intercontinental Championship match a couple of weeks ago at Saturday night's main event. This doesn't help Ethan Page. This doesn't help Rusev. This really didn't build any momentum for Rey Mysterio. This was really a throwaway spot and a waste of 15 minutes on the show. I don't know. I can't say that I'm looking forward to Ray versus Penta as much anymore, because we know that that's going to just become a throwaway match now when it happens. It's not going to have the same meaning other than, Penta meeting his idol one-on-one in the ring, which we've seen once before. So we are going to discuss that again in a little while. Backstage, we see Roman Reigns talking with Jimmy and Jay. Jacob nowhere to be seen. So again, is Jacob on the outs? Is Jacob just the fourth guy, or does Jacob now fill a greater purpose? We had seen him teaming with Jimmy after leaving the MFTs on SmackDown, and it was Jacob that had taken the lead. But this was Roman Reigns telling Jey Uso, you need to go and win that King of the Ring. You've been a world champion. You've held this. Now you need to win the King of the Ring, go to SmackDown, and take Cody's title. Show him what it means for the family. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to come right back in just a moment with the remainder of the Raw review, and then we are going to preview Raw. But first, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a look at how you can help us out.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, video games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have ever wanted your break-in podcasting content creation or to help us out behind the scenes, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. Hit that join button. Send us your credentials by email. Tell us how you can help us, how you believe we can help you. We will sit down as a collective and figure out the right fit. All of that and more at turnbucklestudios.org. Our Queen of the Ring Fatal 4-Way, really a lot more interesting than the men's. Giulia, returning home to Italy, the country where she was born, taking on Io Sky, Lash Legend, and Roxanne Perez. And ladies and gentlemen, this was a match. And again, ladies and gentlemen, ladies especially, if you are aspiring to be a professional wrestler, please go and watch the WWE Women's Division. It is absolutely incredible. This match gave us the feeling of anyone can win. We didn't know who was going to win. Of course, Lash Legend being the biggest woman in the match, and I am talking in terms of sheer height, again, took that monster spot with everybody jumping all over her at the start. But it was a lot more believable than the Obafemi spot. In the end, it was Io Sky coming out with the victory, pinning Giulia in her home country. Do we really need to go to Io Sky winning the Queen of the Ring and potentially jumping to SmackDown to challenge Rhea Ripley for the title? Or does she potentially challenge Liv Morgan so that she and Rhea can celebrate and have that Chris Benoit Eddie moment? Or is there a bigger direction? Again, ladies and gentlemen, I would have loved to see Roxanne Perez win this. I think Giulia, so that they don't mishandle her booking, really could have used the win here to advance, especially in her home country. I love Io Sky, do not get me wrong, but I do not need her going on to win the Queen of the Ring. We are going to cover what's going to potentially happen after SmackDown and when that could happen. This was a solid match, ladies and gentlemen, all around. And ladies, again, go and watch the WWE Women's Division if you are aspiring to be a women's wrestler. Backstage again, we get L.A. Knight really getting ticked off with the idea of the bloodline coming back together and rising back to power. I understand where he's coming from. We know he left SmackDown to come to Raw because he didn't want to have to keep facing Solo in the MFTs. Where do we go with L.A. Knight from here? Ladies and gentlemen, LA Knight is my other pick. Solo was my SmackDown pick to go to the King of the Ring final. LA Knight is my Raw pick to win. And we will get to that in just a little while. In our main event, ladies and gentlemen, a match built without any real fanfare, without any real advertising or promotion. Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. Why would you not save this match for a big money show like Night of Champions? Or was this just another chapter? And ladies and gentlemen, this was absolutely incredible. Both men back and forth, move for move, counter for counter, everything. We once again saw Braun Breaker try and counter Seth Rollins, superplex it into the Falcon Arrow, but it was blocked. We saw Seth Rollins hit the pedigree on the table. We saw Austin Theory get involved. We saw Braun Breaker spear the Oracle, Paul Heyman. And we saw Seth Rollins pick up the victory on Monday Night Raw. This match, ladies and gentlemen, again, sort of seemingly out of nowhere, no real build for it. Really didn't make sense to me. But you had Braun Breaker take Seth out at WrestleMania, costing him his match against Gunther. You saw Braun Breaker win the match at Backlash. So this was Seth's turn to win. Now, we thought that there could have been all kinds of different things. We thought we might get the return of Bronson Reed, but I think that is something you need to save for, again, a big money show. With Logan Paul out of action, again, ladies and gentlemen, the vision is weakened, and they really haven't been able to stay healthy. Logan Paul comes in, and Braun Breaker goes down with an injury. Or sorry, Austin Theory comes in, Bronson Reed goes down with injury. Braun Breaker returns, Logan Paul goes out with injury. Now, we do know that Paul Heyman did state that he has it written into the members of the Vision's contracts that any members can defend those tag team titles. So Braun Breaker coming out wearing one half of the World Tag Team Championships really wasn't a surprise. And I do like the idea of the Freebird rule being used. But again, ladies and gentlemen, this match really should have been built up with more fanfare. Saved for a big money show, whether you're talking Night of Champions, whether you're talking SummerSlam. But I do have to ask, we did see with Austin Theory getting involved, Montez Ford come out to make the save for Seth Rollins, and both men acknowledging each other after the match. But I posed this question last week on the Raw Patrol. Is there a potential that, as we saw in the build and the start to WrestleMania, when Seth took credit for handing Brock Lesnar to Obafemi on a silver platter, can we go to a Seth Rollins and Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar and Braun Breaker tag team match? That is very, very intriguing. And is that where you maybe potentially return a Bronson Reed to really help his brethren? We also did see one other segment in the backstage area that I forgot to mention. And again, it had to do with Sol Ruca, our women's Intercontinental Champion, who after her interview accidentally interrupted an interview with Lyra and Bailey as Lyra decided to break away from the interview and go ask Sol for an Intercontinental Championship match. This was something that could have been done post-interview instead of interrupting the interview and really trying to push yourself maybe above your tag team partner. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be right back to tell you what the result of that was. But first, ladies and gentlemen, please check out our shop.
The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at turnbucklestudios.org.
And ladies and gentlemen, once again, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. And we would ask that you please check out our merchandise shop powered by redbubble.com, so it is 100% safe and secure. Support your favorite shows and your favorite podcasters. Wear what we wear. And ladies and gentlemen, all of those proceeds come back into our studios to bring you a better experience. And while you're there, when you buy something, send us a photo, tag us on our socials, all of that, and we will give you a shout out live during one of our regular weekly programs. All of that and more, turnbucklestudios.org. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be very, very intriguing, especially as far as our King and Queen of the Ring qualifiers go. Let's start, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start with the Queen of the Ring, which starts with our reigning Women's World Heavyweight Champion, Liv Morgan. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our champion is in the tournament, as she will take on Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, and Chelsea Green. This leaves me wondering, does Liv have a realistic shot at winning? Does Liv Morgan win and then go to challenge Rhea Ripley, thus expanding the Judgment Day's hold on the WWE? Or does she win and potentially give the match to Roxanne Perez or Raquel Rodriguez? Or do we get that other surprise? Again, I don't need Becky Lynch to win this. She's just coming off of her third reign as the Women's Intercontinental Champion. And we know that she and Liv have a history over that championship, as it was Liv who took it from her due to Dominic Mysterio's interference a couple of years ago. So there is that history. Then you add in Chelsea Green, your first ever women's U.S. champion, the only two-time, she is a two-time women's U.S. champion as well. Very, very intriguing for her to be in this spot. And we need something more from her. Would the opportunity for Chelsea to challenge for a world title be intriguing to you? I know it would be for me, especially because she's never really been given that opportunity to showcase truly what she can do outside of being a comedy act. And we all know that she is a fantastic wrestler. But this is what it comes down to. Alexa Bliss, who is the fourth competitor in this match. And she, since her return, has really not had the best of luck. And this is really where I need her to step up. I've said it before. Can we get the goddess Alexa Bliss back? Can we get Alexa Bliss to the Queen of the Ring final? This would be very, very intriguing for me, regardless of who she faces. It would not be out of the realm of possibility for me to see Alexa Bliss in this spot and potentially getting that opportunity. We know she played the peacemaker between Rhea and Charlotte to get all three of them on the same page at Saturday night's main event and going into Clash in Italy. So, can we get the goddess back? Can we get 5 Feet of Fury back? We know she's had a history with Becky Lynch. Hasn't been quite as much of a history with Liv, and really no history with Chelsea. But this should be about Alexa really reestablishing her name and who she is. Earlier on, I said WWE really screwed up with taking Sami Zayn or Ricky Saints and Tala Tonga out of the King of the Ring and replacing them with Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre. Ladies and gentlemen, it's changed again. Because tomorrow on Raw, in the King of the Ring Fatal 4-Way, we will have Seth freaking Rollins taking on Javon Evans, taking on Tala Tonga, taking on Ricky Saints. Tala Tonga was the last guy eliminated in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Could we go to Tala Tonga winning this, potentially setting up that powerhouse match that we suggested earlier, because he took out Obafemi last Monday in that King of the Ring Fatal 4-Way? Does Tala become that monster to win this match? Ricky Saints is really caught up in a rivalry right now with Carmelo Hayes, so I don't see it being him. But Saints is just as good a pick. We saw Seth Rollins last year win the Money in the Bank. Could we go to potentially Seth winning this and then facing Roman at SummerSlam and putting Braun Breaker on the back burner? Or does that set up that big feud and the way to get the belt to Braun Breaker? And again, ladies and gentlemen, Javon Evans slipped into the Elimination Chamber with a victory in a match between him, Dom, and Gunther. I really don't see him sneaking into this again. So, for me, it's down to Seth, unless you're going to put Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker on the back burner, or Tala Tonga. And in this case, I'm going to say I do hope it's Tala Tonga, because I'm going to trust that the Vision are going to do what they can to take Seth Rollins out of this match. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 Intercontinental Championship matches tomorrow. I said it in the preview. Now we're going to get Penta versus Rey the match that should have taken place last week that got pushed back. Why? I don't know. This was not a case of you needing somebody to fill two different roles on one show, because you very easily could have done Penta versus Ray, had Dragon Lee take on either a Rusev or an Ethan Page one-on-one, and you would have been absolutely fine. So tomorrow we get Penta versus Ray, Idol versus Protege, I guess. This is going to be an incredible luchador match. Don't get me wrong, I just don't know how badly I need it, because you got it pushed. And I think that this is going to be thrown out. I think you are going to see guys like Ethan Page, Rusev, and Dragon Lee all get involved in this, thus setting up, whether it's a gauntlet or another ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. This is just not something I need. This match, I think, is a complete waste and a complete throwaway now. And lastly, I mentioned it just as we were leaving the Raw preview. We had that interaction between Sol Ruca and Lyra Valkyria backstage. We get Sol Ruca versus Lyra Valkyria for the Intercontinental Championship on the women's side tomorrow as well. Is this the match to really elevate Sol Ruca to where she needs to be? Or is this just Sol Ruca is a transitional champion for the WWE, and this is a way to get the Intercontinental Championship back to Lyra, who has not had a lot of success as a tag team wrestler with Bayley, and who may really need to pull out all of the stops. We've seen Sol's inexperience cost her against Liv Morgan. We've seen it cost her against Io Sky. Does Lyra's main roster experience translate to that win for her for the Intercontinental Championship? Or does this once again just get thrown out? Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we have. I'm sure we are going to hear from Obafemi, who will kick off the show tomorrow as well. Is he going to challenge Brock Lesnar? Is he going to call out the winner? Is this where we're going? What is going to happen? Are we going to hear from the Bloodline and their newest member, Jacob Fatu? What are we going to see with the rest? Ladies and gentlemen, tune in tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here at Turnbuckle Studios for the Raw Patrol with Chris Best, myself, and a host of other wacky characters. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I will be right back with the SmackDown review.
A Turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, videos games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today, because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. All times are in Eastern Time. Monday night we are on call as the Raw Patrol is on duty at 8 p.m. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Thursdays let us power your dreams with the Xbox Showcase at 9 p.m. Friday we invite you to come for a ride with the SmackDown Security Detail at 8 p.m. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. On Sunday, be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. And later in the day, the Locker Room presents Rasslin Recap Delivers at 7 p.m. Always be aware that weekend shows can vary in times, as the PLE Patrol and other watch party streams are always a must-see. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day, and watch all of the latest episodes on turnbucklestudios.org/shows. And please do not forget to drop a like, follow, and to subscribe to all of our channels, and when the time is right, all you have to do is tap in.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. And there you have it, our weekly calendar. There is something for you here each and every night of the week. And we want you to meet the team behind those shows. Chris Best, Chris Parrish, Bubba Duke, myself, Logan Thompson, and Carl Carafel. Click on our individual links to get our socials and watch our latest weekly live episodic shows, including this one, which will be up in just a little while. All of that and more, turnbucklestudios.org. SmackDown. Like I said, nothing really stood out to me on SmackDown this past week, but we got a lot of moving parts and a lot of build. And I find it very, very intriguing. We started off with Gunther absolutely destroying the announce tables, grabbing the mic and saying how ticked off he was that the fall shouldn't have counted because his foot was under the rope, which it was. He got screwed out of the title, and I really didn't like that dusty finish. I covered this last week. We got the response from Cody, who came out and said, "You're right, but you should be a pro about it instead of a sore loser." And he was willing to give Gunther a rematch right then and there. But then he gets interrupted by Sami Zayn. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a fan of this new whiny, complainy Sami Zayn character. Yes, the underdog from the underground gets worn out, but he is always so much better in that character than he is being this whiny conspiracy theorist. Following this, Gunther put Cody to sleep. Sami made the save, and Cody hit the crossroads on Sami Zayn. Ladies and gentlemen, again, why are we now building to a triple threat match? This does not need to happen. This really does not need to happen. If you're going to turn Cody heel, pull the trigger and turn him heel. I'm not a big fan of this. I don't need triple threats. I want one-on-one for the title, only if the story calls for it. But we are going to find out a little bit more what's going to happen next week when we do the preview portion of the show. This was not a fun way to start the show. But, ladies and gentlemen, we go to our women's Queen of the Ring fatal four-way match. And, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of intrigue, some breakdown. Ladies and gentlemen, Bayley versus we had Raquel Rodriguez, JC Jane, Kiana James, and Bailey. This, again, was really, really wide open. All four of these women could very easily have been picked. This went a lot of different ways. Fatal Influence did not accompany JC Jane to the ring. They accompanied her to the top of the ramp, but they did not come out to the ring, which I felt was really, really intriguing. Kiana James came out with Julia. Again, Julia in Italy getting that ovation. She wanted to go to the back. She did not want to be involved in this. But Kiana said, no, come to the ring. You're coming to the ring. So she did, rather reluctantly, which we've seen the tension between the two. I know Mr. Best has been pushing and pining for the breakup, which I just am not ready for, but we'll see what happens. And Bailey. So we know that Bailey and Lyra were both in the Queen of the Ring tournament. We know that Lyra has an Intercontinental Championship match this coming Monday. And this, very, very intriguing. We also didn't have Liv Morgan or Roxanne Perez at ringside for this match for Raquel Rodriguez. But this, we didn't get everybody jumping on Raquel. But this was really Bailey starting the match off strong. And Bailey, I think, is in that Alexa Bliss spot where we need more from her, as she has not had that much luck of late. And they gave us a lot of time for this match. Again, ladies, if you are aspiring, go and check out the WWE Women's Division. And I am talking Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, because it is absolutely fantastic. We did have a point where every woman hit their finisher. Raquel Rodriguez was able to come out of this match after Julia got attacked on the outside and Raquel pushed Kiana James' foot off the ropes. But Julia had gotten back up, taken her out, and Kiana James got distracted, thinking it was Julia that had broken up that count. JC Jane hit the rolling encore to walk into the Tejana bomb. This is very, very intriguing because we do, as I mentioned, we have Liv Morgan in a qualifying match this coming Monday. And Raquel Rodriguez advances. So Raquel Rodriguez is now set to face Io Sky in the Queen of the Ring semis. We're not sure when that match is going to take place. There is a potential that it takes place tomorrow. There is potential that it takes place the following week. There's potential for them to drag it out to Night of Champions. Do we go with Raquel Rodriguez to win the Queen of the Ring and challenge Liv Morgan? Or, and I mean, I've said it before, I don't need the Io Sky versus the Judgment Day. These feuds and these things can tend to really get dragged out. Do we go to Raquel Rodriguez versus Rhea Ripley? Again, strengthening the Judgment Day's hold on the WWE. After this match, we saw Julia comforting and trying to console Kiana James, but to no avail. Kiana shrugged her off, pushed her away, and that led to Julia attacking her. So we're going to Julia versus Kiana James. I know that Mr. Best has been really pining for this split. I still thought it was a little bit too rushed. I didn't need it. And who could Kiana James have as her next potential client? Or is this a way to really give a shine to both of these women? We know what Kiana James is capable of, and I'm hoping it's to put a shine on Kiana James, but I'm also hoping that it's the opportunity for Julia to really stretch her wings and for them to do what they brought her in to do. But I digress, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very intriguing. And we will come up with the preview. We saw Danhausen and The Miz backstage again. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get some finality to this, please? I don't need Danhausen and The Miz consistently. This needs to be over. Big, meaty men slapping meat. That is what we got in our next match. Two big hosses. A guy being pursued by the MFTs, being pulled in many different directions because of where he comes from. You've had Solo trying to recruit him for the MFTs. You've got R-Truth trying to recruit him to join him and Priest. You've seen Priest be untrustworthy, but we've seen them work together. I am talking about Royce Keys taking on the MFTs, Tala Tonga. And this has been building. We've seen the tension between Keys and Solo, and we're going to get to that again a little bit later on. But Royce Keys and Tala Tonga. And again, ladies and gentlemen, what a match. Royce Keys is such a different competitor compared to what we saw him as in AEW, where he was really not utilized for his wrestling ability. This is a guy that can go toe-to-toe with the best of them. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy, again, that I could see power versus power. If this is a position you want to go to, I am all for it. This was a great powerhouse match, knockdown, drag out, exactly what it should have been. This was not a catch-as-catch can. This was exactly what it should have been. A sort of a street fight. Neither man showing the advantage. Both men knocking each other down with shoulder tackles. Royce Keys hitting a brutal pounce. But when the MFTs, Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga tried to get involved, it was R-Truth that came out. No Damian Priest with him. And Truth came out to try and make the save. And he got beaten down, and it was Priest who came out, saved Truth, but left Royce Keys to face the MFTs and left him there alone in the ring, which we did get an answer to a little bit later in the show. In the end, it was Tala Tonga defeating Royce Keys. But we go to the back and we see Sami Zayn talking with Nick Aldis, saying, you know what? They made this my business, or Cody and Gunther have made this my business. When Nick Aldis is saying, no, you need to stay out of their business. No, they made it my business. And Nick Aldis said, that's fine. Look, you can have whatever. But right now I have a very important meeting. And Sammy, again, oh, yeah, you'll make time for everyone else, but you ain't got a minute for me. Who is so important that this meeting interrupts me getting some time? And in comes Chad Gable. I love it. I love this idea because it means you don't have to go back to Chad Gable wrestling El Grande Americano because of the loss at Noches de las Grandes, where he was unmasked. This is absolutely fantastic. And you open up more. Now, here's the question, ladies and gentlemen. Does American Made come with Chad to SmackDown? Do we get the Creed brothers? Do we get Ivy Nile? Do we get American Made moving to SmackDown? Now you can build in American Made versus the MFTs versus Priest and Truth, or versus another tag team who showed up. But we're going to get to that other tag team in just a little bit, because we wound up with a very, very surprising tag team match as we started off with a Rhea Ripley promo who said, look, yeah, I didn't come out of Clash in Italy unscathed. My knee is a little bit banged up. But Jade Cargill, Michin, and BFAB failed to get their job done. And I had no problem making that call to my former nemesis to help counteract the numbers game, which brought out Charlotte Flair, who said she had more fun teaming with Ripley than she anticipated, but still wants that title. Great. Love it. Love it. This is Charlotte really starting to try and build herself up as both a singles and tag team wrestler. And we are going to get to that in just a few minutes as well. Very, very interesting, because then we're interrupted by our women's U.S. champion, Tiffany Stratton. We know that she and Charlotte have had a one-off match at WrestleMania. And for what it was a great match. There's no issues with Tiffany and Rhea. But Tiffy said, as much as I love being the U.S. champion and as much as that title means to me, I want that one back. They were then interrupted by Jade Cargill, BFAB, and Michin. Okay, I get where we're going. In the end, it was Flair looking at Tiffany Stratton saying, look, you don't like me and I sure as hell don't like you. But Tiffy, why don't you and I team up here tonight to take on any two of them? Nick Aldis came out and said he loved the idea and said it will be Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton versus Jade Cargill and Michin. We know that Tiffy and Jade have issues. It was Jade, after all, who decimated Tiffany a few months ago at Saturday night's main event to take that women's championship. And Tiffany wants it back. So Tiffany had every reason to be involved with Jade Cargill, but nothing with Rhea Ripley. Well, this wound up being a decent match. Jade was able to pick up the win, but it was the build for everything that really set this match apart. But again, it was Jade picking up the win over Tiffany Stratton. Is this a situation of Jade just having Tiffy's number, or is this setting up a bigger match down the road, potentially with either Jade or Tiffany having the title again in that defense and Tiffany getting the win to sort of put this out of reach. I'm very, very intrigued. But now we get a promo package for the newest member of the SmackDown roster, Finn Balor. I said it with Chad Gable. Ladies and gentlemen, I love it. Because you can now move Finn away from the Judgment Day. He doesn't need it. You don't have to drag that on any longer. Do we go to a potential reunion of Finn with Priest, Truth, and Rhea? Or do we keep Finn on his own? I hope for a little bit we keep Finn on his own. But let's not forget, Finn also has history with Tama Tonga and Tala Tonga as members of the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro. Backstage we go and we see Damian Priest and R-Truth talking, and Truth is asking him, dude, why didn't you save Royce? Why only me? Priest said, look, you're my tag team partner. You're the only one I care about. I don't know Royce. I still don't have complete trust in him. But you are my partner. You are who I care about. And we are the tag team champions, and we have to be ready. And Priest walked away because he had to get ready for his King of the Ring qualifier a little bit later on, which is where we saw our AAA tag team champions, the War Raiders, show up again to look at R-Truth and say, look, we like your belts. We're prepared to put these on the line anytime against those titles. I love it, ladies and gentlemen. You are now giving AAA some main roster exposure, getting the belts over there. You do have Dom as the AAA Mega Champion on Raw. Now you've got the tag team champions on SmackDown. I absolutely love it. Perhaps the biggest growing rivalry on SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes and Ricky Saints 3. We've had Hayes pick up a victory. We've had a double count out. Now we get the rubber match. Well, no, it can't be, because if Saints wins, you're still tied 1-1, and then you need that fourth match as the rubber match. As long as we don't wind up with a best of 7 series. This match started quickly as Ricky Saints decided to jump the bell and attack Carmelo Hayes. And this was done really, really well, long before Hayes could even get his jacket off. Once Hayes was able to get things turned around, send Saints out of the ring, and then hit the dive, he's finally able to get his jacket off. They let this grow and fester. This is very, very personal for both of these men. And again, I love it. I don't want a best of 7 series, but I do love the pairing of these two. And I could see this eventually becoming like a bar type situation with them teaming to go for the tag team gold. Both men had things to do as far as Mello had the King of the Ring match on Monday. Where does Saints fit into all of that? Well, we're going to discuss that again in just a little while. They took little shots. They took the jabs, the pokes. Heel moves from both men. Saints, with an absolutely brilliant move, had Hayes down and out on the outside, crawled back into the ring for the countout victory. I thought he had it because I thought the ref was further ahead in his count than he actually was. But Hayes was able to break up the count. However, Saints was able to pick up the victory with the cheap roll-up and grabbing Mello's tights. I know I've said it before. I'm tired of the schoolboy, schoolgirl finishes. This was one of those situations where it was called for and really welcomed, especially pulling on the tights was a nice touch. Kudos to the booking on this match. This was a solid match with Ricky Saints picking up the win. We saw an interview backstage with Fatal Influence who were ticked off because JC Jane did not get the win in the Queen of the Ring match earlier in the evening. Well, they see Paige and Brie Bella doing a photo shoot. So they interrupt and we see JC Jane doing a lot of the talking. And due to some beautiful, beautiful camera work, we were left fooled. Because then from behind, Lainey Reed and Fallon Henley laid out Paige and Brie. This, again, masterful storytelling. This is Fatal Influence truly making that impact that they need to make and putting the women's tag team champions and division on notice. Can we get those belts onto Fatal Influence, please? Imagine those tag team titles going between all three brands with Fatal Influence. This would be absolutely incredible. We get another match that came as a result of the previous week as we get Chelsea Green, yes, Chelsea Green solo, taking on Lash Legend, who did, of course, have her Irresistible Forces partner Nia Jax in her corner. We saw Chelsea try and recruit Tiffany Stratton to come out to the ring with her. Tiffy was on her way to the trainer's room and didn't have any interest. Would Chelsea Green have any type of backup? Unfortunately, the answer is no. But again, we got to see a little bit more out of Chelsea. This should have been an absolute squash for Lash Legend, and it was not. Although Lash really has the height advantage and the power advantage on Chelsea, Chelsea able to use her experience to make this match look a lot better than it probably should have been. Nia did, of course, get involved, attacking Chelsea outside the ring. And we know that Chelsea and Nia do have history from Nia's time as our WWE Women's Champion. But again, little too much, the numbers game too much for Chelsea Green to overcome. And Lash Legend picked up the victory with the Lash extension. Chelsea did amazingly well in the babyface role, which is not something we are accustomed to seeing her in. And I, for one, want more. But again, can we get a bit more of a serious competitor and a little bit more out of Chelsea Green just like we need more from Alexa Bliss and from Bayley. Can we get that former U.S. champion out of Chelsea Green? I'm not saying we need to go back to the full Karen gimmick, but can we get a little bit more out of Chelsea Green, who does so much to entertain us here each and every week? Again, another video package highlighting Blake Monroe coming soon, which I really think should have happened. We saw her a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, ironically meeting Chelsea Green backstage, and then nothing. Back to the coming soon. This was something that should have been done a while ago. Our main event and men's King of the Ring fatal four-way match with a lot of history in this match, as our U.S. champion Trick Williams took on Braun Breaker, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio. Trick and Braun, their time in NXT, they are very familiar. They feuded over the NXT championship. Damian and Dom, what more needs to be said, truly? This was a very, very intriguing match. And I'm going to admit, I picked Braun Breaker to win this match. But we also had to question, would Seth Rollins make his presence felt on SmackDown? He did not. But how would the history play in? Liv Morgan was at ringside for Dominic Mysterio. And in a fatal four-way, there are no disqualifications. There are no countouts. But I did ask, with these four-ways, because I know I'm not a big fan of the triple threats, and I'd like to see these tournaments go back to a one-night thing. But could we have gone to elimination matches to really get these people through? And I think that would make things a little bit more intriguing. In the end, it was Liv Morgan preventing Damian Priest after Braun Breaker and Trick Williams had gone through a table on the outside. And Braun did not have Paul Heyman, who was still out injured after being speared on Monday Night Raw. But it was Liv Morgan hitting a low blow on Damian Priest to prevent him from hitting the South of Heaven chokeslam that allowed Dom to hit the frog splash and pick up the victory. So now we have, in our King and Queen of the Ring semifinals, we have Dominic Mysterio versus Oba Femi. Is this where we get a Brock Lesnar coming in to lay waste to Oba and have him put Dom through to the King of the Ring finals? Is this just Oba's time? We also have Io Sky and Raquel Rodriguez on the women's side in the semifinal. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to come right back. Oh, sorry. We also went to a backstage segment and we saw Chad Gable apologize to Rey Fenix, saying, I now understand the Mexican and lucha libre culture. I understand what it means to the country, and I now have the respect for it, and I want to apologize to you. But we will be right back, ladies and gentlemen. One more commercial break, and then the SmackDown preview for this coming Friday.
A turnbuckle affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, video games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at turnbucklestudios.org.
And ladies and gentlemen, once again, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. Again, all the information, if you want to join us, hit the join button, email us your credentials, tell us how you can help us, how we can help you. We will sit down as a collective and find the right fit. As well, we invite you to check out our merch. Our store is powered by redbubble.com. Support your favorite shows and your favorite podcasters. Wear what we wear. All of those proceeds come back into our studios to bring you a better experience. And tag us in the socials. Let us know that you bought something, and we will give you a shout out live right here on air. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this coming Friday, very, very intriguing King of the Ring matchups. But we are going to start because Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes have agreed for Gunther to get a rematch, but Gunther is picking the stipulation, and Gunther is making them wait until this Friday when he will announce the stipulation. Is it a special guest referee? Is it a special type of match? Is it? We don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I'm leaning to the idea of a guest referee. And I think that this might be where you could return Drew McIntyre. You could put Sami Zayn in there. There is a lot of things that are possible. But we are awaiting the Gunther stipulation. Very intriguing Queen of the Ring women's fatal four-way match. We talked about how Sol Ruka and Lyra Valkyria will face off for the Intercontinental Championship this coming Monday. Well, Sol and Lyra not only have the Intercontinental Championship this coming Monday, they are two of the four participants in the Queen of the Ring qualifier, as well as Jade Cargill and Charlotte Flair. I've already said I think Alexa Bliss needs that victory on Monday. I think in this situation, if you go to, I'm going to say that Charlotte and Jade are going to take each other out and beat each other senseless on SmackDown. They are not going to factor into the decision. But if we get that Alexa Bliss win, could we get that Charlotte Flair win and have Alexa versus Charlotte in that Queen of the Ring semi? Does Rhea make her presence felt in this match with Charlotte and Jade? Sol just won the Intercontinental Championship. I don't know if you're going to make her that transitional champion right away and put the belt back on Lyra. Or does Lyra become that safe bet to go to the Queen of the Ring finals? We know that she and Bayley have not had a lot of luck. And you get to Lyra Valkyria challenging for the Queen of the Ring once again. On the men's side, again, lots of history. We spoke about it on Raw when Roman Reigns told Jey Uso, you need to go win your King of the Ring qualifier, win the King of the Ring, and go challenge Cody to solidify our hold. So Jey Uso versus the man who's really without a country right now, a guy who's teamed up and has history with the Usos, both with and against them, L.A. Knight. And my pick from SmackDown, or my pick from Raw to actually win. But this is going to be very interesting. Do they cancel each other out? Versus the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner, Royce Keys, who really made his presence felt a few weeks ago when he stepped up to try and take that contract signing from Gunther, versus SmackDown's newest superstar, Finn Balor. Very, very intriguing. Could we get Finn potentially back into a world title picture right away? Or do we see him coming to the aid in a situation, let's say Priest and Truth needed, do we get him coming to their aid? Do we go to getting Royce Keys into that title shot? As we know, Cody's and he are friends as well. Cody and Jay are friends, which again leaves LA Knight without that alliance. So, where do we go? Again, ladies and gentlemen, very, very intriguing. I think I'm going to actually change my pick, and I am going to actually take Jey Uso by hook or by crook to win this coming Friday. So, I'm going to put it up there. I do believe that if we get Brock Lesnar interfering, because we don't know when these semifinals are taking place, folks, whether it's going to be, whether we get Io and Raquel on Monday, same with Dom and Oba as well, or if we have to wait another week, or if we have to wait right until Night of Champions. But ladies and gentlemen, that does it for me here. But one more look at our weekly calendar, ladies and gentlemen, before we say our goodbyes.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. All times are in Eastern Time. Monday night, we are on call as the Raw Patrol is on duty at 8 p.m. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Wednesday, we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Thursdays, let us power your dreams with the Xbox Showcase at 9 p.m. Friday, we invite you to come for a ride with the SmackDown Security Detail at 8 p.m. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. On Sunday, be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. And later in the day, the Locker Room presents Rasslin Recap Delivers at 7 p.m. Always be aware that weekend shows can vary in times, as the PLE Patrol and other watch party streams are always a must-see. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day, and watch all of the latest episodes on turnbucklestudios.org/shows. And please do not forget to drop a like, follow, and to subscribe to all of our channels, and when the time is right, all you have to do is tap in.
And ladies and gentlemen, one last time, turnbucklestudios.org is your home for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, and there is something for you here each and every night of the week. We want you to meet the team behind those shows. Myself, Chris Best, Chris Parrish, Logan Thompson, Bubba Duke, and the Godfather himself, Carl Carafel. Click on our individual links, and turnbucklestudios.org/hosts is where you can find us. I've had my socials up there all night. But click on our individual links to get our socials and watch our latest weekly live episodic programs. All of that and more at turnbucklestudios.org. Ladies and gentlemen, that does it for me here tonight. I'd like to thank you all once again for joining us and remind you that the world is better with you in it. From all of us here at the Locker Room and Turnbuckle Studios, to those of you out there wherever you are, good night, good luck. I'm out.
too. During the heat of the game, it's clear he's a champ when all else disappears. Rally the team with a wink and a cheer. He's the leader that everyone fears. Quickly, it's a ring.